I should have known the moment I saw the dirt on her shoes. That's the thing that still gets me. Not the smell of the shed, not the fear in her eyes, but the dirt. It was fresh, black mud, the kind you only get from the swampy part of the woods behind the house. It was a small thing, but it told me everything I needed to know, even before I knew it. My name is Detective Miller. I've been a cop for 20 years and I thought I had seen it all, but nothing prepares you for the cold, empty feeling of a missing child case. This one was Lily. 7 years old, red hair, a smile that could light up a whole room, gone for 3 days. We had followed every clue. We had searched every house, every park, every street. The last place to check was the small, run-down house on the edge of town, the home of Victor and Clara Hayes. Victor was a big, mean man with a temper. Clara was quiet, always looking down. The search warrant felt heavy in my hand. We walked around the back of the house. That's when I saw the shed. It was old, leaning to one side, hidden by thick bushes. The air around it felt heavy, like a bad secret was trapped inside. I kicked the door open. The smell hit me first, old wood, dust, and something else, something sharp and metallic that made my stomach turn. The light from the doorway cut through the darkness. That's when I saw them. Victor was tied to a chair. He was screaming, his face red and ugly. He was trying to break the ropes, but they were too tight. He was yelling about his rights, about how I couldn't do this. I didn't listen. Clara was sitting on an old wooden box next to him. She was still, like a statue made of fear. Her eyes were wide, looking at nothing. She was wearing a thin, dirty dress, and her arms were covered in dark purple bruises. She was shaking, but not from the cold. And that's when I saw the dirt on her shoes. She hadn't moved from that spot, but the mud was fresh. She had been outside recently. I walked toward her, stepping over broken tools and old boxes. Victor kept screaming. "Get out of here, Miller. You'll pay for this. I didn't do anything." I ignored him. I knelt down in front of Clara. Her face was pale like paper. "Clara," I said, keeping my voice low and soft. "I'm Detective Miller. We're looking for Lily. Do you know where she is?" She didn't look at me. She just stared at the wall. "He'll kill me," she whispered. Her voice was thin, like a piece of glass about to break. "Who will kill you, Clara?" I asked. She nodded toward Victor. He was still yelling, but his eyes were watching her, full of hate. He knows everything, I thought. She knows everything, and he's keeping her silent with fear. I looked at the bruises on her arms. I looked at the way she flinched every time Victor moved. I made a decision right there, a decision that changed everything. I stopped being just a detective looking for a missing child. I became a man trying to save a woman. I stood up. I walked over to Victor. I grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and pulled him out of the chair. He was big, but my anger was bigger. "You're done, Victor," I growled. "You're under arrest for kidnapping and for hurting your wife." He fought me. He kicked and spat. It took 3 other officers to get him into the police car. As they drove away, Victor screamed one last thing. "You'll regret this, Miller. You hear me? You'll regret saving her." I didn't care. I had saved her. I walked back into the shed. Clara was still sitting on the box. The silence now was heavy, much heavier than Victor's yelling. "He's gone, Clara," I said. "He can't hurt you anymore. You're safe now." I looked her in the eye. "I promise I will protect you." She finally looked at me. A tiny spark of something, maybe hope, maybe relief, flickered in her dark eyes. She nodded once. "Now tell me about Lily," I said. "Where is she?" Clara opened her mouth to speak, but before a sound could come out, my eyes caught something in the darkest corner of the shed. It was a small, colorful blanket. It was folded neatly, but it looked out of place next to the rusty tools. It was the same blanket Lily's mother had told me about, the one Lily always carried. My heart stopped. I didn't need Clara to talk. The dirt on her shoes, the fear, the blanket, it all clicked into place with a terrible, cold sound. I walked to the corner. I knelt down and slowly, carefully pulled back the blanket. The air rushed out of my lungs. It was like someone had punched me hard in the chest. Lily was there. She was small. She was still. Her red hair was dull and her eyes were closed. She was cold. She was dead. Twist 1. Victor didn't just kidnap her. He had killed her days ago. He had kept her body hidden in the shed, and he had forced his wife to sit next to it, silent and terrified. Clara had been sitting next to the dead child for days. I stood up, shaking. The promise I had just made to Clara, "I will protect you," felt like a cruel joke. I had saved the wife from the husband, but I was too late for the child. I had failed the most important person. I looked at Clara. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for Lily. I had saved her, but I couldn't save Lily. And in that moment, I knew that the promise I made to Clara would be the heaviest burden I would ever carry. The shed became a terrible, busy place. More police cars came. The flashing blue and red lights cut through the dark woods. The medical examiner, a tired woman named Dr. Chen, came and did her sad, quiet work. I stood outside watching them take Lily away. The small, white bag they put her in looked too big for her. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. My partner, Detective Jones, came up to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "Miller, you okay?" he asked. I just shook my head. "No, Jones, I'm not. I found her, but I was too late." "You got the monster, Miller. That's what matters." "Did I?" I looked back at the shed. "He's alive. Lily is. I promised her mother I'd bring her back." I looked at Clara. She was sitting in the back of a police car, wrapped in a thick blanket. She was still crying, but quietly now. She looked like a child herself. I walked over to the car and opened the door. I had to talk to her. I needed to know everything. "Clara, we need to go to the station," I said. "We need to write down what happened." She nodded. "I'll tell you everything. I'm not scared anymore. He's gone." At the police station, we sat in a small, quiet room. I turned off the camera. I wanted her to feel safe just for a moment. "Clara, start from the beginning," I said. She took a deep breath. Her story was a nightmare. "Victor brought Lily home 3 days ago," she started. "He said he just wanted to scare the parents. He said he would let her go later." I leaned forward. "Did he hurt her right away?" Clara shook her head fast. "No, not at first. He kept her in the shed. He gave her food and water. He was strange. He was happy." "Then what happened?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The second night, Lily was crying. She missed her mom. Victor got mad. He told her to be quiet. When she didn't stop, he hit her. Hard." Clara covered her face with her hands. "I tried to stop him. I told him to leave her alone. He hit me too. He tied me up next to her. He said if I moved, if I made a sound, he would kill me and then kill Lily." I felt a cold rage inside me. But Lily she was already gone when we found her. "Yes," Clara whispered. "He hit her again, and then she was quiet, so quiet. He untied me, but he told me I had to sit there, next to her. He said if I left, if I told anyone, he would find me and make me hurt more than Lily did." She looked at me, her eyes full of pain. "He made me sit there for a whole day, Detective, next to the blanket. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I just sat there and watched the time go by." The dirt on her shoes. She must have tried to run away, or maybe Victor had forced her to help him move something. I didn't ask about the dirt. It didn't matter now. Her story was true. The fear was real. "Why didn't you tell me when I first came in?" I asked. "He was right there," she said, pointing to the empty chair. "He was yelling. I thought if I said one word, he would break free and kill me right there. I was so scared. I thought I was going to die." I looked at her. She was a victim just like Lily, a victim of the same monster. "Clara," I said, my voice firm, "Victor is in a cell now. He is not getting out. He will never hurt you again. I promise you that." I put my hand on the table. "You are going to help us put him away forever. You are going to tell this story to the judge and the jury, and when it's all over, I'm going to make sure you get a new life, a new name, a place where he can never find you." She looked at my hand, then at my face. "You promise?" "I promise," I said. I meant it more than anything. I had failed Lily, but I would not fail Clara. This was my chance to make things right, to keep a promise. Clara told her story again, this time for the camera. Her words were clear and strong. She was a good witness. The trial was fast. Victor's lawyer tried to say that Clara was lying, that she was the one who was angry and that she had hurt Lily. But the evidence was too strong. The bruises on Clara, the way Victor had acted, and the terrible truth of Lily's death. Victor was found guilty of kidnapping, murder, and abuse. The judge gave him a life sentence. He would never see the outside world again. As they took him away, Victor looked right at me. He didn't yell this time. He just smiled. A cold, empty smile that made my blood run cold. "You think you won, Miller," he mouthed. "You just made a promise you can't keep." I watched him go. I didn't feel like a winner. I felt tired. But I kept my promise to Clara. I worked with a special group to give her a new identity. I found her a small apartment in a city far away. I gave her some money to start over. The last time I saw her, she looked different. She was wearing bright clothes, not the dull ones she used to wear. She looked me in the eye. "Thank you, Detective Miller," she said. "You saved my life." "Just keep safe, Clara," I said, "and don't look back." I watched her walk away, a free woman. I felt a small bit of peace. The case was closed. The monster was locked up. My promise was kept. Or so I thought. The year after the trial was the longest year of my life. It was like living in a house where all the clocks had stopped at the moment I pulled back that blanket. I went back to work. I solved other cases. I helped people. But every time I looked at a happy family or saw a little girl with red hair, the guilt would come back like a cold wave. I had kept my promise to Clara. I had moved her far away. I had made sure she had a new name, a new job, and a safe place to live. I even got a secret report every few months just to check on her. The reports always said the same thing. Clara Hayes' new name is stable. No contact with former life. Safe. That was the only thing that gave me peace. I had failed Lily, but I had saved Clara. I had kept one promise. But the promise I broke was the one that kept me awake. Lily's mother, Mrs. Johnson, looked at me in the courtroom after the verdict. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with eyes that were completely empty. "You promised, Detective," she said, her voice flat. "You promised you would bring her home." I couldn't say anything. I just stood there, a big, strong detective who couldn't save a little girl. I started drinking too much coffee. I stopped sleeping well. My apartment felt too quiet. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking I heard Victor's voice screaming or Clara's quiet whisper. Jones, my partner, tried to help. "Miller, you need a break," he said one day, pushing a vacation form across my desk. "Go fishing, go anywhere, you're burning out." "I can't, Jones," I said, not looking up from the cold case file I was pretending to read. "I need to be here. What if something happens?" "What could happen? Victor is in a supermax prison. He's locked up tighter than a drum. Clara is halfway across the country. It's over, man. You won." I didn't feel like I won. I felt like I had just stopped the game for a little while. I knew the prison Victor was in. It was a terrible place, built of thick concrete and steel bars. No one ever escaped from there. It was supposed to be the end of the story. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Victor's smile in the courtroom was not the smile of a man who had lost. It was the smile of a man who knew something I didn't. I kept the file on the Hayes case in my desk drawer. I would pull it out sometimes just to look at the pictures. Not the sad pictures of Lily, but the pictures of the shed, the pictures of Victor's face, the pictures of Clara's terrified eyes. I was looking for a loophole, a mistake, something I missed. I found nothing. The case was solid. Victor was guilty. One afternoon, I was sitting in my car eating a cold sandwich. It was a beautiful, sunny day, the kind of day that felt wrong after all the darkness I had seen. I was watching kids play in a park. They were laughing. They were safe. I thought about Clara. I hoped she was finding some peace. I hoped she was laughing somewhere. I had done that for her. That was my one good thing from that whole mess. I finished my sandwich and drove back to the station. Everything was normal. The phones were ringing. People were typing. The coffee machine was making that loud, gurgling noise. I walked past the captain's office. The door was closed, but I could hear voices. They were loud, too loud for a normal day. I stopped at my desk. Jones was already there, his face pale. He was holding a piece of paper. "Miller," he said, his voice low, "you need to see this." I took the paper from him. It was a fax from the State Prison Authority. The words were big and black. "Urgent escape alert." I didn't need to read the rest. I knew. Victor Hayes, he was gone. The report said it happened at 3:00 a.m. A power failure. A guard who didn't check the right door. A simple, stupid mistake. Victor, the monster I had put away for life, had slipped out of the thick concrete walls and disappeared into the night. My heart started to beat fast, a heavy, cold drum in my chest. The peace I had felt for a year was gone. The monster was free. I looked at Jones. "Call the special unit, the one that handles Clara's new identity. Tell them to check on her, now." Jones was already on the phone. I didn't wait. I ran to the captain's office and threw the door open. "Captain, we need every man on this. He's dangerous. He's a killer." The captain looked tired. "Miller, we know. The state police are handling the manhunt. We're just supporting them." "Supporting them? He's coming for me. He told me he would." The captain sighed. "Miller, he's 1,000 miles away. He's running. He's not thinking about you." But I knew he was. I remembered that cold, empty smile in the courtroom. He had been planning this. He had been waiting. I went back to my desk. I pulled out the Hayes file. It wasn't a closed case anymore. It was a ticking clock. I sat there staring at the file, feeling the cold dread crawl up my spine. Victor was free, and he knew who put him away. The phone on my desk rang. It was a blocked number. I looked at it. I knew it was him. I picked it up. A low, rough voice came through the speaker. It was Victor. "Detective," he growled, "you took everything from me. Now I'm coming for you." I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "You're a coward, Victor. Turn yourself in." He laughed. It was a terrible, dry sound, like stones rubbing together. "You have 5 days to find me before I find you." Then the line went dead. 5 days, the clock had started. The phone call ended, but the sound of Victor's dry, terrible laugh stayed in my ear. 5 days. That was all the time I had. 5 days to find a ghost who had just walked out of a concrete wall. I slammed the phone down. Jones was still talking on his phone, his voice low and worried. "He's fine, Captain," Jones was saying. "He's just focused. Yes, I'll keep an eye on him." I knew he was talking about me. I didn't care. I was focused. I was angry, and I was scared. Not for myself, but for Clara. I grabbed the phone and called the special unit again, the one that handled witness protection. "I need a full check on Clara Hayes," I said, my voice shaking a little. "The one we moved a year ago. I need to know she's safe, now." The man on the other end was calm. "Detective Miller, we check on all our protectees every month. She's fine. She's in a small town in Oregon. Victor is in New York. That's 3,000 miles away. He just escaped from a maximum security prison. 3,000 miles is nothing to a man like him. He knows where she is. He knows I helped her." "Sir, we have protocols. We will increase surveillance, but you need to calm down." Calm down. Victor was loose. He had killed a child and abused his wife, and he had just promised to find me. I hung up. I couldn't trust them. I had to do this myself. This was my fight. I had put him away and now I had to finish it. I pulled out a map of the United States. I spread it out on my desk. Victor was in New York. I was here. He had 5 days. He's not going to run to Mexico or Canada, I told Jones, who had just hung up his phone. He's coming for me. He wants revenge, and he wants to prove I can't keep my promise. So what's the plan, Miller? Jones asked. He looked at the map. We can't just drive around the country looking for him. No, we think like him. Where would he go first? He needs money. He needs a car. He needs a gun. I started making a list. Money. Victor had no friends. He had no family who would help him. He had one place he kept money hidden, an old safe deposit box at a bank in his hometown. Car. He would steal one. We put out an alert for any stolen cars in the New York area that fit his size. Gun. He used to work at a warehouse. He had a friend there who liked guns. Jones, call the bank in Victor's hometown. Tell them to check the safe deposit box. If anyone tries to open it, they call us. Now. Jones was already dialing. I started looking at the warehouse friend. His name was Sal. He was a small-time criminal. He lived in a small town about 2 hours from the prison. I'm going to see Sal, I said. Wait, Miller, you can't go alone, the captain said. The captain can wait, I snapped. I have 5 days, Jones. I'm not wasting them on paperwork. I grabbed my jacket and my gun. I checked the bullets. I put an extra clip in my pocket. I felt like a soldier going to war. The drive to Sal's house was long and quiet. I kept looking in my rearview mirror. I felt like Victor was right behind me, laughing. Sal's house was a mess. Old cars in the yard, trash everywhere. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked again, harder. The door opened a crack. A small, nervous man with a dirty face looked out. It was Sal. Police, Detective Miller. I need to talk to you about Victor Hayes. Sal's eyes went wide. He tried to slam the door, but I put my foot in the way. I pushed the door open and walked inside. The house smelled like old smoke and fear. I don't know nothing about Victor, Sal squeaked. Don't lie to me, Sal. Victor escaped. He needs a gun. He needs a car. Did you help him? Sal started shaking. No, I swear, I haven't seen him in years. I looked around the room. There was a big, new TV, a brand new video game system. Sal was poor. He couldn't afford this stuff. Where did you get the money for the TV, Sal? He looked down at the floor. I won it. You're a terrible liar, Sal. Victor came here, didn't he? He gave you money. What did you give him? I walked into the kitchen. The back door was open. There were fresh tire tracks in the mud outside. I walked back to Sal. A car, Sal. What kind of car? Sal finally broke. He started crying. He came last night. He was crazy. He said he needed a car that was fast and didn't look special. I gave him my cousin's old blue pickup truck. He gave me $5,000. $5,000. That was the money from the safe deposit box. Victor was smart. He didn't go to the bank himself. He sent Sal. Did he say where he was going? No, he just said he was going to see an old friend. He said he had a promise to keep. An old friend, who was Victor's old friend. He hated everyone. Then I remembered. Victor had one person he always talked about, a man named Frank who lived in a small town in Pennsylvania. Frank was just as mean as Victor. They used to work together at the warehouse. I called Jones. Victor is driving a blue pickup truck, stolen from Sal's cousin. He's heading toward Pennsylvania. Check for Frank's address. Frank used to work with Victor at the warehouse. Jones was fast. He called me back in 5 minutes. Frank's address is in a small town called Harmony. It's about a day's drive from here. I've sent the address to your car's GPS. I looked at the clock on my dashboard. Day 1 was almost over. I had a car, a direction, and a name. I drove toward Harmony, Pennsylvania. I felt a little better. I was chasing him. I was not waiting for him. But as I drove, a cold thought hit me. Why would Victor tell Sal he was going to see Frank? Victor was smart. He knew I would check on his old friends. This was a trap. Victor didn't want me to find him. He wanted me to follow a false trail. He wanted me to waste my time in Pennsylvania while he went somewhere else. Where would he go? He was coming for me. He wanted revenge, but he also wanted to hurt me in the worst way possible. The worst way to hurt me was to break the one promise I had kept. He was going for Clara. I slammed on the brakes. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. I pulled out the map again. Oregon, that's where Clara was, 3,000 miles away. I looked at the clock, 4 days left. I had wasted a whole day on a lie. I turned the car around. I was going to Oregon. I was going to find Clara before Victor did. I had to keep my promise. I drove for 2 days straight. The blue pickup truck was a lie. Frank was a lie. Victor had played me like a cheap fiddle and I had fallen for it. The thought made my blood boil. He knew I would check on his old friends. He knew I would waste time. He was buying himself a head start. I called Jones from a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Jones, forget Pennsylvania. He's not there. He's going for Clara. There was a long silence on the line. Miller, that's a huge jump. Why would he go 3,000 miles just to get to her? Revenge, Jones. He knows I saved her. He knows that's the one thing I feel good about from that whole mess. If he kills her, he breaks my promise. He wins. But how do you know he's going to Oregon? I don't, but I can't take the chance. I'm heading west. I need you to do 2 things. First, find out if anyone saw a blue pickup truck heading west from New York. Second, call the special unit again. Tell them I'm coming. Tell them to move Clara. Now. Jones sounded tired. I'll do what I can, Miller, but you're going off the books. You know that, right? I know, just keep my badge warm. I hung up and started driving again. I didn't stop for sleep. I just kept going, feeding myself on bad coffee and the cold fear in my stomach. Day 3 started with the sun rising over a desert. I was tired, my eyes were burning and my head hurt. I was losing time. I stopped at a small diner for breakfast. I needed to think. Victor was smart, but he was also a creature of habit. He wouldn't just drive across the country without a plan. He needed money, which he got from Sal. He needed a car, which he got from Sal. What else did he need? He needed to know where Clara was. The special unit was supposed to be secret. No one was supposed to know her new name or her new town, but Victor was her husband. He knew her better than anyone. I thought back to the trial. Victor had been so sure of himself. He had smiled. He had mouthed that I couldn't keep my promise. How did he know where she was? I called Jones again. Jones, checked the prison records. Did Victor have any visitors, any letters, any calls? Jones called me back an hour later. Nothing, Miller. No visitors, no calls. He got 1 letter a month from a church group, but it was just Bible verses. A church group, that was too clean. Check the church group, Jones. Find out who runs it. Find out who writes the letters. I kept driving. I was getting closer to Oregon. I was driving through mountains now. The air was cold and clean. I was about 5 hours from Clara's town when Jones called again. His voice was excited. Miller, you won't believe this. The church group is real, but the letters, they were written by a woman named Sarah Jenkins. She lives in the town where Clara is now, and guess what? Sarah Jenkins is Clara's new name. My foot slammed on the brake. The car slid a little on the wet road. Clara was the one who had been writing to Victor. What? That's impossible, Jones. She was terrified of him. She helped us put him away. I know, but the records don't lie. The letters are all about God and forgiveness, but there are little things in them, little hints, like, the Lord is watching over me in this small town by the sea, and I pray for your soul every day, and I hope you find peace in the place where you are. It's all code, Miller. She was telling him where she was. Why would she do that? I thought back to the shed, the fear in her eyes, the bruises, the way she whispered, "He'll kill me." Maybe she wasn't afraid of him anymore. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she wanted him to come to her. But why? I had to find her. I had to know the truth. I drove straight to the small town. It was a quiet place, full of old wooden houses and fishing boats. I found the address the special unit had given me. It was a small, blue house near the water. I parked my car down the street and walked up to the house. The lights were off. The curtains were closed. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked again, harder. I tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. That was a bad sign. Clara was supposed to be safe. She was supposed to be careful. I pulled out my gun and walked inside. The house was empty. No furniture, no clothes, just dust and silence. She was gone. I walked into the kitchen. On the counter there was a small piece of paper. It was a receipt from a cheap motel. The name of the motel was the Sunset Inn. It was about an hour's drive south, in a town called Port Royal. And next to the receipt, there was a small, silver locket. It was the locket I had seen her wear at the trial, the one she said Victor had given her. I picked it up. It was cold in my hand. I looked at the receipt. The date was yesterday, day 2. She hadn't been gone long, and she had left a trail, a clear, easy-to-follow trail. I felt a cold dread crawl up my spine. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. Clara wasn't running from Victor. She was leading me to him. I looked at the locket in my hand. It was a picture of her and Victor, smiling, a picture from before the darkness. I put the locket in my pocket. I had to find that motel. I had to get to her before Victor did, or before she did whatever she was planning. I got back in my car and drove south. The sun was setting over the ocean. It was a beautiful, terrible sight. I was getting closer. The chase was almost over. The drive to Port Royal was a blur of dark road and flashing thoughts. Clara was not the terrified woman I had saved. She was a player in this terrible game. She had been writing to Victor. She had led me to her empty house. She had left the motel receipt. Why? I thought about the letters, the church group, the Bible verses. It was all a lie, a way to pass messages under the nose of the prison guards. I called Jones again. I was tired of keeping secrets. "Jones, I'm in Oregon. Clara is gone. She left a trail to a motel in Port Royal, and she was writing to Victor in prison." Jones was quiet for a moment. "Clara, writing to him. Miller, that doesn't make sense. She was a victim." She was a victim who was tied up next to a dead child for a day. That kind of thing changes a person, Jones. It breaks them, or it makes them stronger and much, much colder. "So what's the plan? You think she's meeting him?" "I don't know, but I think she's leading me to him, and I think she's planning something big. Victor is a monster, but Clara is the one who knows all his secrets. She knows how he thinks." I reached Port Royal just as the moon was high in the sky. The Sunset Inn was a small, sad place right on the edge of the water. It looked like the kind of place people went to disappear. I parked my car and walked into the office. The man behind the desk was old and sleepy. "I'm looking for a woman," I said. "She checked in yesterday. Name is Sarah Jenkins." The man looked at his book. "Ah, yes, room 12. Paid for 2 nights. She's a quiet one." "Is she in her room now?" "Don't know. Haven't seen her since she checked in." I walked down to room 12. I stood outside the door. I could hear nothing. I knocked. "Police, open up." Silence. I used my shoulder to break the door open. It was an old door, and it broke easily. The room was empty, but it wasn't clean. It was a mess. The bed was unmade. There was a half-eaten sandwich on the table, and on the floor there was a small, torn piece of paper. I picked it up. It was a map, a hand-drawn map of the local area, and there was a big red circle around one spot. It was an old warehouse by the river. I looked at the map. It was a place I knew, not from this town but from the old town, Victor's hometown, the warehouse where he used to work. The map was a fake. It was a clue that looked real, but it was just another part of the game. I looked closer at the map. The handwriting was neat, too neat. It wasn't Victor's messy scrawl, it was Clara's. She was still leading me. But why would she lead me to a place that was 1,000 miles away? Then I saw it. The map wasn't of the old town. It was of Port Royal. The river here was called the Black River. The river in Victor's hometown was called the Black Creek. The names were almost the same. Victor was a creature of habit. He always went back to the places he knew. He was coming to a place that looked like his old hunting ground. I looked at the receipt again. It was for 2 nights. She had checked in yesterday. She was supposed to be here tonight. I checked the time. It was 10:00 p.m. I called Jones. Jones, I found the next clue. It's a warehouse by the Black River in Port Royal. I'm going there now. Call the local police. Tell them to meet me there, but tell them to be quiet. I don't want to scare him off. Be careful, Miller. This whole thing smells like a trap. I know, Jones, but I have to go. I have to keep my promise. I drove to the warehouse. It was about 10 minutes away. It was a huge, dark building, sitting alone by the water. It looked empty and dead. I parked my car far away and walked the rest of the way. The air was cold and smelled of salt and old fish. I walked up to the big metal door. It was locked. I tried the small side door. It was also locked. I walked around the back. There was a broken window. It was small, but I could fit through it. I climbed through the window and dropped onto the cold concrete floor. The place was huge and dark. Dust motes danced in the few shafts of moonlight coming from the broken roof. Victor, I yelled, my voice echoed. It's over, show yourself. Silence. I walked slowly through the warehouse. I checked behind the big stacks of wooden crates. Nothing. I was alone. I checked my watch. Day 3 was almost over. I had wasted another day. I walked to the center of the warehouse. I stood there feeling stupid. Clara had played me again. She had led me to an empty building. Then I saw something on the floor, a small, shiny piece of metal. I picked it up. It was a key to a storage unit. There was a number on it, 412. I looked around the warehouse. There were no storage units here. I walked back to the broken window and climbed out. I stood outside, looking at the dark building. I had been so focused on the warehouse, I had missed the obvious. I walked back to my car. I drove back toward the town. I looked for a storage unit place. I found it a few blocks away, Port Royal Storage. I drove up to the gate. I used the key. The gate opened with a loud, grinding sound. I drove to Unit 412. It was a small metal box. I used the key to open the lock. I pulled the door open. The unit was full of things, old furniture, boxes, and in the middle of the room there was a small wooden box. I walked into the unit. I opened the wooden box. Inside there was a small silver gun and a note. The note was written in Clara's neat handwriting. You promised you protect me, you failed. Now I will protect myself. Meet me at the old lighthouse, midnight, day 5. The old lighthouse. It was the highest point in Port Royal. It was the perfect place for a final meeting. I looked at the gun. It was a small silver revolver, the kind a woman would carry. I looked at the note, midnight, day 5. I had 2 days left, and I finally knew where the final meeting would be. But I still didn't know who was going to be there. Victor, Clara, both. I put the gun and the note in my pocket. I locked the storage unit. I drove back to the town. I had to find a place to sleep. I had to rest. I had to be ready for the final day. I was close now, too close to fail. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept turning the silver gun over and over in my hand. It was cold and heavy. I looked at the note again. Meet me at the old lighthouse, midnight, day 5. Clara was smart. too smart. She knew I would find the storage unit. She knew I would find the note. But why the lighthouse? It was too open, too easy. I called Jones. It was 3:00 a.m. Jones, I'm at Port Royal. I found a note from Clara. She wants me to meet her at the old lighthouse at midnight on day 5. That's tomorrow night, Miller. Be careful. It sounds like a trap. It is a trap, Jones, but for who? Me or Victor? I thought about the warehouse I had broken into, the one that looked just like the one in Victor's hometown. Victor was a creature of habit. He liked places that felt familiar. Jones, I think the lighthouse is a distraction. I think the real meeting place is the warehouse I broke into last night, the one by the Black River. Why do you think that? Because Victor is a monster, but he's also a coward. He won't want to fight in the open. He wants a dark, closed place where he feels powerful. That warehouse is perfect. It's a copy of his old hunting ground. So what's the plan? I'm going to the warehouse tomorrow night, not the lighthouse. I'm going to be there early. I'm going to wait. And what about Clara? I don't know, Jones. I don't know if she's working with him or against him, but I have to find out. I have to keep my promise. I spent the next day getting ready. I bought a new flashlight. I checked my gun again. I ate a big meal. I knew I needed all my strength. I drove to the warehouse at 6:00 p.m. on day 4. I parked my car far away just like before. I walked through the woods, keeping low. I climbed back through the broken window. The warehouse was even darker now. The sun was setting and the moonlight hadn't come out yet. I found a good spot to hide. It was behind a big stack of wooden crates, right in the middle of the warehouse. I could see the whole room from there. I could see the big metal door. I waited. Hours passed. The warehouse was silent. The only sound was the wind blowing through the broken windows. I thought about Clara. Why did she write to Victor? Why did she lead me here? I pulled out the locket she had left at the house. I opened it. The picture of her and Victor smiling, they looked happy. They looked like a normal couple. But I knew the truth. I knew the bruises. I knew the fear. Maybe she wasn't writing to him because she loved him. Maybe she was writing to him because she wanted him to come to her. Maybe she wanted to finish what I had started. I put the locket away. I had to stop thinking. I had to be ready. At 11:00 p.m. I heard a sound. It was the sound of a car engine. It was close. I held my breath. I gripped my gun tight. The car stopped outside the big metal door. I heard a key turn in the lock. The big door opened with a loud, terrible screech. A blue pickup truck drove inside. It was the one Sal had described, Victor's truck. Victor stepped out of the truck. He was bigger than I remembered. He was wearing dirty clothes and his face was covered in a thick, dark beard. He looked like a wild animal. He was holding a heavy metal pipe in his hand. He looked around the warehouse. He smiled. It was the same cold, empty smile he had given me in the courtroom. "I know you're here, detective," he growled. His voice echoed in the big room. "I know you followed the trail. You always do what you're told." He walked slowly through the warehouse, hitting the pipe against the crates. Clang, clang. The sound was loud and scary. "You think you're smart, Miller. You think you saved her. You think you won." He stopped right in front of my hiding spot. My heart was beating so fast I thought he could hear it. "You made a promise you couldn't keep, detective. You promised to protect her, but you didn't protect her from the pain. You didn't protect her from the guilt. And you didn't protect her from me." He laughed. "She's the one who told me where she was. She's the one who told me where to find you. She's the one who helped me escape." I couldn't believe it. Clara was working with him. The fear, the tears, the bruises, was it all a lie? "She's not here, Victor," I said, stepping out from behind the crates. My gun was pointed right at his chest. "It's just you and me." Victor turned around slowly. His eyes were full of hate. "You're wrong, detective," he sneered. "She's here. She's always here. She's the one who set the trap." Then I heard a sound behind me, a small, quiet sound, the sound of a door closing. I turned my head just a little. It was Clara. She was standing there in the shadows. She was holding the small, silver gun I had found in the storage unit. She looked different. Her eyes weren't scared anymore. They were hard like stone. "Clara, get out of here," I yelled. "He'll hurt you." Victor laughed, a loud, terrible sound. "She's not here to hurt me, detective. She's here to watch you die." I looked at Clara. "Is that true? Did he force you?" Clara didn't answer me. She looked at Victor. Her face was empty. "He told me everything, Victor," she said, her voice flat. "He told me how he planned to kill me after he killed the detective. He told me how he laughed when he put Lily under that blanket." Victor's smile faded. "Clara, shut up. We had a deal." "The deal is off," she said. The deal was a lie. Clara had only pretended to help Victor escape to get him alone. Then she raised the gun and pointed it at Victor. "You promised you protect me," she whispered, but she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to the memory of the man who had hurt her. The silence in the warehouse was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Victor, the monster, stood frozen, his mouth open in a silent scream. I stood with my gun pointed at him, my mind racing. And Clara, the quiet, broken woman, stood with a small silver gun pointed at her husband. "Clara, what are you doing?" Victor finally managed to say. His voice was not the loud, angry roar I knew. It was small and scared. "I'm finishing it, Victor," she said. Her voice was calm, like she was talking about the weather. "You thought you were so smart. You thought you could use me to get to him." She nodded toward me. "You thought I was still that scared little mouse in the shed." "We had a deal," Victor yelled. He took a step toward her. "I got you out of that boring life. I gave you money. We were going to start over." "Start over?" Clara laughed. It was a cold, dry sound, just like Victor's laugh on the phone. "You told me you were going to kill the detective, and then you were going to kill me. You said I knew too much. You said you would never stop until I was quiet forever." Victor looked at me, then back at Clara. He was trapped. He was a wild animal caught in a net. "He's lying, Clara," I yelled. "He's trying to turn us against each other. Don't listen to him." Clara didn't look at me. Her eyes were locked on Victor. "He's not lying, detective," she said. "He told me everything. He told me his whole plan. He told me how he was going to use the blue truck to get here, and how he was going to use the lighthouse note to send you on a wild goose chase while he waited here for me." She took a step closer to Victor. But I was one step ahead of him. I knew he would come back to a place that looked like his old warehouse. I knew he would try to use me, so I used him first. I finally understood. The letters, the empty house, the motel receipt, the fake map, the storage unit key, the note to the lighthouse. It was all a dance. A careful, deadly dance to bring Victor and me to the same place at the same time. "You wrote to him," I said, my voice low. "You told him where you were." "Yes," Clara said. "I had to. He would never have escaped if he didn't think he had a safe place to go. I gave him hope. I gave him a reason to run." "And the note to the lighthouse?" "I knew you would find it. I knew you would think it was a trick. And I knew you would remember the warehouse. You're a good detective, Miller. You always look for the pattern." She was right. She had played me perfectly. She had used my own mind against me. Victor was shaking now. He dropped the metal pipe. It hit the concrete floor with a loud clang. "Clara, please," he begged. "I love you. We can still run away. We can forget all this." "You don't know what love is, Victor," Clara said. "You only know how to hurt. You hurt Lily. You hurt me. And you hurt the detective by making him break his promise." She raised the gun higher. Her hand was steady. "You promised you protect me," she whispered, but she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to the memory of the man who had hurt her. Bang! The sound was deafening. It echoed off the metal walls of the warehouse. Victor cried out. He grabbed his chest and fell to the ground. He was dead before he hit the floor. I stared at Clara. She had done it. She had killed the monster. I lowered my gun and ran to Victor. I checked his pulse. Nothing, he was gone. I turned back to Clara. She was still holding the gun, her face pale, but her eyes were clear. Clara, why? I asked. You didn't have to do this. I would have arrested him. He would have gone back to prison. She looked at me, and the hardness in her eyes melted away, replaced by a deep, terrible sadness. You don't understand, detective, she said. He told me he would never stop. He told me he would find me even if he had to spend the rest of his life in prison. He would find a way to hurt me. I had to be the one to stop him. Forever. She took a step toward me. I reached out my hand to take the gun from her. It's okay, Clara, it's over. I'm here. I'll protect you. She smiled, a sad, broken smile. You promised you protect me, she repeated louder this time. You promised you protect me from him. Then she turned the gun and pointed it at me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The small, silver gun was pointed right at my chest. It looked tiny, but I knew it was real. I knew it was loaded. And I knew Clara was not playing games. Clara, stop, I said. My voice was a dry whisper. It's over. Victor is dead. You're safe. We can call the police. We can tell them what happened. It was self-defense. She shook her head slowly. Her eyes were full of tears now, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of deep, terrible sorrow. No, detective, she said. It's not over. It will never be over. Not until I break the promise that broke me. What promise? Your promise, she said. The one you made in the shed. I will protect you. You said those words, detective. You said them to a woman who was sitting next to a dead child. You said them to a woman who was so broken she couldn't even speak. She took a shaky breath. You saved me from Victor's hands, but you didn't save me from his memory. You didn't save me from the pain of knowing I sat there and did nothing while Lily died. You didn't save me from the guilt. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. She was right. I had saved her body, but I had left her soul in that shed. I did the best I could, Clara, I pleaded. I put him away for life. I gave you a new life. I kept my word. No, you didn't, she said, her voice rising. You let him live. You let him live long enough to escape. You let him live long enough to come back and try to kill me again. You let him live long enough to make me feel that fear all over again. She looked down at Victor's body. I had to kill him, detective. I had to do what you couldn't do. I had to make sure he was gone forever, and I had to do it alone. She looked back at me. But you are the reason he was alive to escape. You are the reason I had to do this. You are the one who promised to protect me, but you failed. You failed Lily, and you failed me. Twist 5. The detective is the final target. Clara's revenge was not just against Victor, but against the system, represented by the detective, that failed to protect her and Lily completely. I saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a judge, and I was the one who was guilty. Clara, please, don't do this. Think about what you're doing. You'll go to prison. I don't care, she whispered. I'm already in prison. The prison of that shed, the prison of that promise. I can't be free until I break it. She closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. You promised you protect me, she whispered one last time. Bang! The bullet hit me hard. It felt like a giant hammer hitting my chest. I fell back, the world spinning. I dropped my gun. It clattered on the concrete floor far away from my hand. I looked up at Clara. She was standing over me, the small silver gun smoking in her hand. She was crying now, big, silent tears. I tried to speak, but only a bloody cough came out. The pain was sharp and cold. She looked down at me, her face a mask of sorrow and cold resolve. You saved me from Victor, detective, she said, her voice full of pain. But you didn't save me from the pain. You didn't save Lily, and you didn't save yourself from the guilt. She dropped the gun. It fell next to Victor's body. I lay there, the pain in my chest growing. I was dying. Death 3, the detective. I looked at the two bodies on the floor. Victor, the monster, and me, the detective who promised to save the world. Both of us were dead. Both of us were victims of a broken promise. Clara turned and walked away. She didn't look back. She walked out of the warehouse, leaving the two dead men behind. I heard the sound of the big metal door closing. The sound was final. The last thing I saw was the dust dancing in the light, and the cold, empty space where my promise used to be. The darkness was a cold blanket. I could feel the life draining out of me, slow and steady. My chest felt like it was filled with broken glass. I was dying, and the last face I saw was the face of the woman I had promised to protect. I tried to call out for Jones, but my voice was gone. I could only hear the sound of my own shallow breathing. I lay there next to Victor's body, and I started to understand the full, terrible truth of Clara's plan. It wasn't just about killing Victor. It was about killing the promise. It was about making a statement that the only person who could save Clara was Clara herself. I thought back to the beginning, the shed, the dirt on her shoes. She wasn't just sitting there terrified. She was waiting. She was watching. She was learning. She was learning how to be quiet, how to be still, how to be invisible. When I made that promise, I thought I was saving her, but I was just giving her a new kind of cage, a cage of expectation. She was supposed to be the grateful victim. She was supposed to be the one who was saved. But Clara didn't want to be saved. She wanted to be free. I closed my eyes and saw the locket, the picture of her and Victor, smiling. I had thought it was a picture from before the darkness, but maybe it was a picture of the darkness itself. Maybe she had been planning this for a long, long time. I remembered the letters, the church group, the Bible verses. They weren't just code to tell Victor where she was. They were a test of the system. She was testing the prison guards, the mail system, the witness protection program. She was seeing how easy it was to break the rules. She knew the system was flawed. She knew that even a life sentence was just a promise that could be broken. She knew that the only way to be truly safe was to make sure Victor was not just locked up, but gone. And she knew that I, the detective, was the key to her plan. She needed Victor to escape. She needed him to come after her, and she needed me to follow. She used my guilt over Lily's death. She used my need to keep my promise. She used my own detective skills against me. The empty house, the motel receipt, the fake map, the storage unit key, the note to the lighthouse, it was all a trail of breadcrumbs. A perfect, beautiful trail that led me right here to the final stage of her revenge. She needed me to be here to witness it. She needed me to be here to be the final victim. Why me? Why not just kill Victor and run? Because I was the one who promised. I was the symbol of the system that failed her. I was the one who said, I will protect you, and then let the monster live long enough to escape. By killing me, she was not just killing a man. She was killing the idea that anyone else could save her. She was taking back her power. I heard a sound. It was the sound of a car driving away. It was faint, but it was there. Clara was gone. I tried to move. I had to call Jones. I had to tell him. I reached for my radio. It was just out of reach. I stretched my hand. My fingers brushed against the cold metal. I heard another sound. It was the sound of a siren, faint but getting closer. Jones. He must have called the local police after I told him about the warehouse. I had to stay alive. I had to tell them the truth. I pulled the radio closer. I pressed the button. Jones, I whispered. My voice was weak. It's Miller, Warehouse, Black River. Miller, I'm almost there. Hold on. Clara, she did it. She killed Victor, and she shot me. What, Clara? Why? The promise, Jones, the broken promise. She planned it all, the escape, the chase, the whole thing. I coughed, more blood. I was fading fast. Jones, listen to me. She's not a victim. She's a survivor. She's free now. Don't chase her. Let her go. Miller, I can't do that. She just shot a cop. She shot a broken promise, Jones. Let her go. Tell them Victor shot me. Tell them I shot Victor. Tell them it was a fight. Don't let them find the silver gun. It's her freedom." I heard the sirens getting louder. They were right outside the warehouse. "Miller, I'm coming in." I closed my eyes. I was tired, so tired. I heard the big metal door screech open. I heard Jones's voice. "Miller, oh God, Miller." I felt a hand on my chest. I opened my eyes. Jones was looking down at me, his face pale. "She's gone, Jones," I whispered. "She's free." I felt the darkness closing in. I had failed to save Lily. I had failed to keep my promise to Clara, but maybe, just maybe, I could keep one last promise, the promise to let her go. I took one last breath. I looked at Jones. "The silver gun, Jones," I whispered. "Hide it now." He looked at the silver gun next to Victor's body. He looked at me. He understood. He quickly picked up the silver gun and slipped it into his jacket pocket. The other cops rushed in. They saw the two bodies. They saw the blood. "What happened, Jones?" the local chief yelled. Jones looked at me. He looked at Victor. He looked at the silver gun in his pocket. He looked at the chief. "It was a fight, Chief. Victor was here. Miller found him. They fought. Miller shot Victor, but Victor got a shot off first." He looked back at me. I gave him a small, weak smile. He had kept my last promise. The darkness took me.